minutes with you.
Okay, awesome. That was so fun.
Arrow.
Hey, what's going on, man?
Nothing much. How you doing?
One step at a time, man.
I hear you. I hear you. We'll take 18 minutes worth of steps right now.
Good morning. How are you doing today?
I'm good. How are you? I love being on the radio. So I love radio. So being on the radio is super exciting. I've never done it. So I'm just thrilled.
To me, it is theater of the mind. We get to paint the pictures with our words. And so that's why I feel jealous about what you do, because we get to see your words in action.
Yes. And, I would mention that sound is actually the most important thing to me in a movie, which is really weird to say, but I fixate on sound. I think without it, of course, I love the silent era. My father didn't force us. We loved watching it, but I watched a lot of silent film as a child. But without the music, and now, of course, we're in a different era. Sound's really important. What we hear in a theater or at even our homes really makes a difference emotionally on how you feel and interpret the movie. So, including every single sound effect and Foley and, of course, music.
I would love to see you in that editing room then, the way that you describe sound, because it looks like that you would step in there, and that's one thing that your imagination is locked in on. In radio, that's what we have. We have sound. What are we going to do with that sound? How are we going to move that sound so that we can convince people to buy a car, buy a refrigerator, or even come back and listen to the show tomorrow?
Exactly. Well, think about the difference between hearing a footstep down a hallway, right? Like if I choose, if there's tension or I want to create anxiety, how are the footsteps? Are they light? If you don't hear the footsteps, if you don't hear any sound, or if you choose one piece of sound, how's that it's going to completely affect the audience differently. And you don't know that as an audience member. It's kind of subliminal, right? So it's very important. And I look forward to working on a bigger budget film where I have a lot more, I can do anything with the sound effects. And of course, music is so important. A recognizable song in a movie can completely transform the experience.
Well, the music that's in this movie, my God. You've got some stuff that really is going to be, I bet it's on everybody's Spotify list now.
Really? That's so cool.
Yeah, it's got some powerful sounds to it in the way, and and the way you describe sound in it, and then I'm sitting here thinking about these different scenes, the fight scenes, the on the street scenes. I'm going, oh my God, everything that she's talking about is very much evident in those moving pictures.
Wow. I got so lucky with the guy who composed the score. My father never scored his films, right? Until the last one or two. And he'd talk about that a lot. He would use music throughout, not filled with music, but if he wanted a music cue, he would pick a song. And I grew up hearing that he didn't say he didn't like score. He just didn't score his film. I really feel like I love score, but I wanted it to be subtle, especially for this one. So we just used a trumpet and horn pretty much.
Wow.
And a violin.
Well,
horn. Sorry, a trumpet horn. A trumpet is a horn, and a violin. I'm just waking up.
I truly understand that, because look at Andre 3000. With what he has done, taking crunk music, and now he's using just regular instruments, and he's touring the country selling out.
Oh my God, I love Andre 3000. I can talk about hip hop till I'm fluent.
But you're spot on when it comes to the simplicity. And wasn't it your dad that always said, "Don't confuse the audience"?
Oh my God, I can't believe you know that quote. Oh, that. And when I was first writing, I was very ambiguous. And I remember I went to the film festival at the Austin Film Festival, where this film actually premiered. And my mother actually Polly Platt helped found that film festival back in the day. I think it's been around for a while. I don't want to misquote it. And I can't remember what I was talking about. I totally lost my point. What were you talking about?
we were talking about your dad's quote about never confuse the audience.
Don't confuse the audience. So when I first started writing, I was like, oh, the audience will figure it out. They're smart. I was ambiguous. I didn't want to do too much exposition. And I remember I went to see, and Lost had just finished, like its season finale. And one of the creators was there, Damon Lindelof. And he was talking about his film that he had just written for Ridley Scott. And he was like, I like ambiguity. And I remember being so angry at him because I wanted to know more about where they lived. Was it purgatory? So I decided then and there that I was going to be more specific. Mm-hmm. And it is really a simple rule, but it's super important because you do lose the audience if you confuse them. You completely lose them. It takes you out of the film.
That's interesting you bring that up because I do movie premieres with different promotional companies, and one of the things that I really am supposed to do is write down in my notes, when does somebody get up and go to the bathroom? What happened in that movie for that viewer to get up, leave the theater, go to the bathroom, and come back in?
Yeah, I always, especially if I'm really into a film, I tell whoever I'm watching it with, let me know what happens. And I run. If I don't really care, I go very slowly to the bathroom. Yeah, that's an interesting. Yeah, you never know because you never know what's going to happen in the next scene, especially if it's a good film.
Right. When you get to break down your movie experience, in other words, when you get to sit down and talk about how the process of why you did certain things, I mean, you release so much energy toward us, the viewer, because we don't understand what you physically and mentally have gone through, because making a movie is a miracle. So, I mean, but for you to be open about it it allows us to be in your shoes.
Right. Absolutely. It's an all-consuming, especially when you go into production. You really don't have time to think about anything else but what you're doing at that moment. And I think if you're really there, then the actors, the relationship with the actors, especially for me, is so important. Making sure they trust me,
yep.
Making sure that they know that I'm they can trust that when I tell them, hey, you did great right there. That was amazing. Mm-hmm. We can move on. They want to be able to trust me because that's kind of that symbiosis between actor and director is something that is, I think, so important. I saw it growing up. I saw it with, George Miller, who I first worked with. People loved him. He's the sweetest, funniest. He just makes you feel comfortable on a movie set. And believe me, I've been on movie sets where you don't feel comfortable. And the tension is felt throughout. Also having a tremendous amount of respect for the crew. My mom was a production designer, so there's the above the line, below the line. She had her hands on both sides.
Wow.
And that's very unique for that department. And a cinematographer, to a certain extent, also has that, where he works with the electricians and the grips, but he also is working very closely with the director.
Yeah.
I think so. I'm not sure what I'm supposed to say, except that it's an all-consuming. You have to prepare the night when you go to sleep. You have to prepare for the next day. You really have to know especially if you're having to work really quickly on a low budget film. And you also have to know what you want. And you also, my father used to use this quote from Orson Welles, and he used to say, a director is somebody who presides over accidents.
Oh my God.
And I loved that. And I didn't really understand it till I started actually directing theater, because there's these things that would happen on stage or during rehearsal, and we'd use it. Definitely there's some accidents that happened on this movie that were like, we broke the wall when Thomas Sangster kicks Jordan Dunn, the character. I can't remember his name right now. I'm so sorry. of my own movie. The wall broke. I mean, it was a stunt double, and the wall broke, and we none of us could laugh until I said cut, but like we literally put a hole in the wall.
Wow.
And we used it because it looks real, because it is real. You know, somebody's house in South Central, we had to patch it up, of course, and we made it look great. The improvisation and allowing actors, like, even if I don't agree with them, even if I don't necessarily agree with where the direction they want to go in the scene, I say go for it, because I never know what they're going to do, and I might love it. So that happened a bunch of times. And also, casting is so important, you know, making sure that you're casting the right actor for the role who really embodies that role, I think is something that I have a gut instinct for that, but also from watching, you know, being around actors my whole life. My father was an actor, and, you know, all his friends were actors. Now that I think of it, I didn't realize it back when I was a child, but, you know, I read this article yesterday in Vanity Fair about directors, and they were saying that every director has a little different approach. Like some are, you know, they were stunt coordinators. You know, everybody comes from a different place, you know, but I think being well-rounded is super important. I mean, I was in a band when I was in a reggae band.
Oh, wow.
I sang a lot in middle school and high school, and I studied music. That I bring that into my directing. I never thought I'd use my musical career. I mean, it wasn't really a career, but I really loved music. That was my first love, and singing. I never thought I'd use that, but my music background plays right into, you know, directing. You got picking the right songs and the right moments, and the rhythm. There's a flow to editing, and of course, you know, and we can feel it when something doesn't feel right, even if you're not a professional.
The scenes that are in this movie, there are so many scenes that leave an imprint on the imagination, especially, you know, I think one of the most powerful scenes is where the crowd has gathered, and I don't want to spoil the movie for viewers, but where the crowd has gathered and we're talking about dirt. That to me was one of the most powerful scenes, because it shows that we all can be activators. We can all use our voice, use our words in order to inspire those that create the circles that we stand in.
Oh my God. You're right. I love it. You totally get that scene. And, you know, Thomas.
Oh my God.
Like he kind of, the expectations were at a certain level for me, and he exceeded my expectations. I mean, the way he delivered those lines are exactly the way I intended them. But you really can't imagine when a great actor can take something and say it I come from dirt, and then he does this pause.
Yeah.
Because he's like, okay, now I got you. And really, I wanted like 150 extras, and we didn't have the money. And so, you know, part of me is always like, I wish I had a bigger audience there. But as a filmmaker, you know, but yeah, he's trying to get out of his situation. And so, yeah, I mean, I love that scene. Thank you for mentioning that scene. That's one of my favorites.
Well, one of the things that, especially him, that we expect that from him anymore. And so you had to set up that stage for him to be who we expect as viewers. And because he's showing up in all these movies now, and he's that actor that's going to become a brilliant, brilliant talent of the future. Yeah.
I mean, my friend was one of my closest friends from like literally second grade. And I didn't even go to the same school. So we met up again in fifth grade in Santa Monica. He said, I'm doing this film right now. This kid his part requires him not to speak. Like, he doesn't speak, but he's a brilliant actor. And he's like, I think he's perfect for this short you're doing, because I had told him, you know, the character in the short. And when I met him, I was like, gosh, Sean, this was my friend. He was perfect. It's like that. Also, even his body, tall, lanky, of course, British. I mean, I just got super lucky. But really, when I was working with him, I mean, I literally gave that, I gave him very little adjustments.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, I just didn't have to. He's just naturally so talented.
Yeah. You know, you talk about it being a low budget film, and you also talk about you coming from the stage. Are they not one and the same? I mean, you've got to get in there, get it done, and you've got to make sure that we don't have to do 10 million different edits and things. Baby, I'm so inspired by the fact that you connected your two worlds into one motion picture, and it will grow forward.
Oh yeah, I mean, I didn't even think of that. I mean, I directed children's theater, and I got to say that was really tough because I had to discipline these kids too because they were kids, middle schoolers, and I'd have to send them out in the hallway. And of course, the most talented actor was the most misbehaved, and I finally got his respect. You know, and I worked these kids so hard that they didn't even realize they were doing a comedy. Yeah, I mean, look, my love of Shakespeare came pretty young, and it didn't have anything to do with my parents, which is strange. I discovered Shakespeare from, you know, taking a class in high school, and then I had to read every single play. I thought Shakespeare was a genius, and my father had always told me, "You're not inventing a new plot. Shakespeare wrote every single plot that's possible. So it's how you tell the story. The plot's already been done." And so I think part of me, and I just love the kings and queens. I think that's why I loved Game of Thrones. Henry V. I think there's this fascination for me. I'm doing now in the East, I'm watching all these like imperial, like, you know, imperial times in China and Korea, and I just am fascinated with that time in history before, you know, obviously before the Industrial Revolution changed a lot of things. So yeah, my love of Shakespeare taught me a lot too.
Let's go back to those days of Shakespeare. Those days where he used, you know, where he had to use the inkwell and the feather and to write things out. Who was his inspiration? Because before there was Shakespeare, there had to be somebody else.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's an interesting question. I mean, he had Marlowe was his contemporary. I mean, he had to have read all the Greek plays.
Yeah.
I mean, we studied those plays. Even in like a regular European history class, you would learn about those plays. I'm sure he got a lot of inspiration from the Iliad and the Odyssey. And then, of course, I don't know much about like the Middle Ages, like what that was like in the theater world. I would have to go back and look at that. But certainly the ancient Greek plays. And probably some of the Italian plays as well, you know, opera. I don't even know if opera was around. I don't know much about that time. Yeah, yeah. But yet it's inspiring to go back there just for a moment. That's like I'm doing this project right now. The crazy things that our parents would say, such as, "Are you digging a hole to China? Where did it come from?" And you find out that it was from the 1500s. You're going, what are you talking about? You know, and that's... And there's I love history so much, and that to me is what you're bringing forward. All of those things that happened in your life and the different challenges and changes, but yet you're allowing us to experience it inside these movies. Absolutely. I mean, the comic books the obsession with comic books in the film was really about how my father didn't let us watch TV. There was no TV in his house, and basically he was, you know. He believed that most of the great films had been made before 1959. Yeah. So I could only watch those films. Now, I loved those films, but I think, you know, I wanted to be watching television, like most of kids, you know, and he was, if you liked something, and he thought it was bad art, then, you know, as a child, you turn that around to say, you know, I'm bad, I don't have good taste. So, you know, that was kind of, I think having this kind of childhood is very different. Like, you have bad taste or you're mediocre because you you like television or you like something that I don't like. My dad didn't like science fiction. I mean, I grew up in the explosion of the science fiction era, you know, Star Wars. I mean, and then also, you know, so Shakespeare in this movie is really like the golden age of Hollywood. And of course, there were some films in the 70s and 80s that he loved, but not obviously like not like the golden age. Yeah. You know, that was kind of put on.
Wow. Well, you've got to come back to this show anytime in the future because the door is always going to be open for you.
Oh, I think she froze.
I think we. Oh man, and I know the time is up. Please let her know that I love the conversation. That I just loved her honesty.
Ara, hold on. Let me try putting her in the waiting list. In the waiting room, and then bringing her back in. Hold on. Let me so you can end this the right way. And all I can say is thank God Azar is back today. Oh my God. I have been and Arrow. I have had parties the last 5 nights in a row.
Wow.
Thursday night, Friday night, Saturday night, Sunday night,
Jesus.
Monday night, last night. Almost all of them driving out to the Hamptons.
Oh, I don't know how you find the energy to do that.
I don't. I lost her. Now I completely lost her. Hold on. Let me wait and see if she. You might as well stay on here. Let's wait and see if she joins us. All right. You know what? Hang tight. I'm just going to get the next station up on the phone here.
Okay.
And then when she comes back, hopefully, if she comes back, I hope, you can just finish it up real quick with her. Hold on one second.
Thank you.
Hold on a second, Ara. She's actually she's calling me back on the phone because her Zoom just crapped out.
Okay.
So hold on 1 second. Antonia?
Yes.
Okay. I still have Arrow here, so he's just going to finish up the last thing with you real quick, and then we'll hop over to the next station. So go ahead, Arrow.
I just want to thank you for the time and energy that you shared with us because you are every bit the reason that inspires a new generation of people that are on TikTok that are going to be movie makers. And your honesty and your truth and brave attitude is just so perfect. And I just wanted to thank you for that.
Oh, I so appreciate that. Thank you so much. I really do.
Well, please come back to
that's my strength is my brutal honesty.
But I love it, though. Please come back to this show anytime in the future.
I used to think it wasn't, but now I feel like it's better. You know, I'm utilizing it in a positive way.
I love it. Please come back anytime in the future. The door is always going to be open for you.
Oh, my gosh. Thank you so much. I so appreciate that. I love talking to you.
Will you be brilliant today, okay?
Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Talk to you later, Arrow.
Bye, Bill.
Good morning, Funky Fresh.
Hey, what's going on with you guys?
Just another day in the city, you know.
That little town that's up north?
Yeah, just that small little town.
Yeah. I've heard of it, but I don't know if I've. Yeah, actually, I love New York City. My last book was about a comic book store in New York City.
Oh yeah, which one?
Oh my God, I don't even know where I was. I was in the meat district, and we went down to Ground Zero, and we thought we're gonna walk back, and we were going in the complete opposite direction of the meat, and so we happened to come across this huge comic book store, and there was a girl in there with orange hair that inspired me, and when I got home, I was writing a book.
St. Mark's Comics?
Is it like huge with all these figurines and everything inside? I'll have to go back and look at pictures.
Oh, no. I think you're thinking of whatchamacallit. You may be thinking of Forbidden Planet.
Oh, that's it. Yep, that's it.
Uh-huh. Yep, you're thinking of Forbidden Planet. Yeah, that's a staple. Anytime I'm downtown, I always have to go there. And it's funny, before I let you talk with Miss Sandra, my uncle and my mother were the first two to take me there as a young pup in the 80s. And I was like, okay, I found my Toys R Us forever. I'll be in here for the rest of my life. So, yes, I know exactly what you're talking about. Love that store. Well, I give to you Miss Sandra. Here she is, another great New Yorker.
Good morning. How are you doing today?
Good morning. I'm doing well. Thank you.
I'm very excited to share a conversation with you because I think that we've all waited 4 years to hear the truth, to hear the actual experiences. And because, people aren't thinking about it anymore. They just want to get away from it as far as they can. But you bring to us the journey that we heard about, but we didn't know about.
Yes. And I'm excited to share that with the world.
The title of the book, I love it, and it's going to. And what I want bookstores to do is don't put it in there sideways. Let people see the full front cover of this book, so they can walk by and say, "I need this book." But it's first in line, how COVID-19 placed me on the front lines of a health care crisis. Unbelievable! It says it all right there.
Thank you so much. Yes. And that is what I hope that bookstores, yes, will place it in their front window so people can see it and say, I need to learn about this woman, her journey, what inspired her to get vaccinated, and what else is she talking about in this book?
Yeah. Because the one thing, we all have our individual stories, and what happens is and we always knew and we saw the pictures of the healthcare world coming together as one solid unit. But what we don't know about that journey is what you went through personally, and especially, the first one in line to get this shot, you had to have been filled with fear, or did you have faith that this was it? I'm going to be the first one, like our first step on the moon.
So I had no fear at all.
Wow.
What I had was faith and excitement and hope. I did not know I would be the first to get the COVID vaccine. Not that it would have changed my decision. I wanted to get vaccinated, and for multiple reasons. For my own personal protection, I worked in critical care where the sickest patients are cared for. I felt like I had a responsibility to my staff, to my patients, to ensure that I was healthy and well so I could be in this fight with them. We could be in this together. And I wanted to make sure that my family was protected. I wanted to make sure that my community was protected. And I wanted to instill public confidence in the science and the safety that, as I read about and felt comfortable with, the safety of the vaccine.
One of the things that you did in doing this is that you inspired other essential workers, because I went to a grocery store because I wanted to be with people. I needed to be with people. And my wife goes, go get a job at a grocery store then. And because I was seeing you and reading about you and your entire team, I thought I can do this too. I can't be in the medicine world, but I can be on the front line at a grocery store. But we relied on you to give us inspiration and that hope.
Well, that was fabulous of you to go and have that experience and be around people and feel like you're making a difference. And thank you so much to you and all the essential workers out there. And I'm happy that I inspired people. And, when people come up to me now and tell me their own COVID story and how they got to yes to getting vaccinated, and I am a part of that journey, I just feel so honored, and it's so heartwarming. And I've heard several amazing stories of how people got to yes and how I'm a part of their journey. And I'm just so grateful.
Well, we the long lines that we had to stand in order to get that first shot, and the way and it was basically waiting for your number. And when your number finally came up, it was like, book it now as quickly as you can. I still have my COVID card, and I don't think I'll ever get rid of it.
And you shouldn't, because it's such a pivotal moment in all of our lives. That I have my initial one, of course. Well, the original is in the Smithsonian. But from that day, it's in the Smithsonian with all my clothing and the needle and the syringe and all the paraphernalia from that historic day is in the Smithsonian. But I have a replacement card, and all the other cards with all the boosters that I received over the 4 years.
Listeners need to understand that this book goes really deep into your life, into before the moments in New York City. And that is that you came to this country to live out a dream. My God, you were given a nightmare, but yet you didn't falter.
Yeah, it starts from my journey. It starts with my journey from my homeland, Jamaica. And it was important to tell that story because it gives the readers a deeper understanding of who I am. My dream, as you said, having this dream at about age 9 of wanting to become a nurse, inspired by taking care of my grandmother, whom I lived with, and who cared for me, and coming here with $50 to my name, and this dream, and having to work through personal adversity, systemic adversity, to achieve my dream, having this illustrious 30-year career, having gone through a pandemic, making history, receiving the Presidential Medal of Freedom. Yes. I mean, this was so much more than I hoped for. All I wanted was to become a nurse. And I feel like, the privilege is not lost on me. And so that is why I am so inspired to work on behalf of others who don't have this privilege, and also to inspire others by the resilience and determination it takes to overcome obstacles and realize their dreams, to just inspire someone never to give up on their dreams and to just stay focused.
Man, it's almost like there should have been a movie soundtrack that came with this book, because I can't imagine the music that helps shape your inner strength during these times of question.
Well, from your lips to God's ears, there might be a movie and a nice movie soundtrack to go with this. And we can say we talked about this on July 24th. 2024, right?
It's one of those moments in global history that I don't want time to forget about, because it seems like that we experience things together as a nation and as a world, but then we set it aside and keep walking forward. I'm glad that you've got this book out here now, because believe it or not, I was with my doctor yesterday. The COVID numbers are rising. It's not gone, and we need these books of truth to keep us strong on the inner core.
And you're so right. I hope we never forget, because this was such an important time in our history. And, you make a very good point. We came together. We rallied around this common cause, and look at how much we got done. Mm-hmm. And it shows that we can do this around just about any challenges that we have. So we should never, ever, ever forget. And there's so many lessons to learn from this experience. It was a devastating time, but, it really opened our eyes up to the potential.
Mm-hmm. Putting this book together, did it come from handwritten notes that you were taking along the way? How did you put this book together? Because it really, as much as you're celebrating life, you still had to go into those areas of question.
Yeah, so it was, I really, one of my regrets is that I didn't keep a in-depth journal. But what I would do is, it didn't matter what time I got home, the weather permitted, I would be outside just sitting, finding a quiet place. Mm-hmm. A lot of times it was by the water. Something about the water calms me. And I would just file away my events of the day. So I had to dig deep into my files, my recollection, and again, just vowing never to forget about this experience. They all came back once I started the journey of writing. They all came back. Of course, my foundation of growing up in Jamaica will always be a part of me. And I treasure that so much. So it was easy to go back there. And a lot of smiles going back there. As a matter of fact, some of the heavy days during the pandemic, what I had to do was go back to some childhood experiences, watching some old TV shows that brought me joy. I rewatched Girlfriends. Schitt's Creek was another show that got me through it because I needed to laugh. And so I found those comfortable moments. I snuggled up with my blanket, and I had a few notes here and there, but it was mostly from, what I had filed away in my memory, which wasn't and isn't too deep, because I'll always forget these times.
Wow. And we can't forget about Squid Games too. That was one of my big binge watches as well during that time period.
Yeah. I didn't get into that, but my thing is I just wanted to laugh, and anything that made me laugh, because I was crying every day. I just wanted to laugh and felt like I was part of that girlfriend group, and that was really it. Anything to make me laugh. And I also felt I wanted to be around people.
Yes.
So even though there wasn't anyone on the streets, it felt so lonely and eerie. I still wanted to be out there to see what was happening. My brother would say, nothing is happening out there, right? But I go, yeah, but I still need to be out there.
So true. So true. I got to ask you kind of a personal question. I did write during the lockdown. I've been a daily writer for 30 years. And so, but the thing is, though, is that I'm inspired by you for sharing your story, but I won't go back and reread my journals in fear of what I'm going to see, or that I don't want to bring it back to the life. What is a positive thing that people can do if they did physically keep a journal? Should we go back and read it?
I think if you can manage it, you should. And even if it brings up, different emotions, if you want to cry, you should cry.
Yeah.
It was a really hard time for all of us. But you may smile at, and be grateful for what you did personally, how far we've come.
Yeah, right.
And it may bring you hope that we can get over challenges. You may learn lessons from your own writing of how to deal with future challenges. Could be everyday challenges, hopefully not a pandemic again of this magnitude, but you may learn some very important lessons from your writing, but in your own time. Timing is everything. Yep. And in your own time, you will pick up that journal and you will read it. Yeah. I believe so.
Keeping your team together during those times of question. What was there a go-to sentence or a phrase that you would look at your team and say, boom, 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 say it, and then all of a sudden everybody felt emotionally reconnected?
Well, I worked with an amazing team at Northwell's Long Island Jewish Medical Center.
Yes.
And just the whole health system, Northwell Health overall, that came together to just really work hard to save lives and do the best that we can. Do the best that we could under the circumstances. But I would say to my team, we have to find the yes.
Yeah.
We have to find the yes. And sometimes they would want to wring my neck, but, ultimately we came around, we found the yes. My team of critical care, nurse leaders, they rock. I couldn't have gotten through it without them. And, during this time, it brought us closer together because we were able to share our vulnerabilities without judgment. And so we realized that everyone was going through something and everyone was dealing with the pandemic differently.
Yeah.
We would go on these walks when time permitted where we just took the mask off. And just in open air, with our social distancing, of course, just, connected with each other. Some days we were very vocal, and some days we walked in silence, and the tears were just flowing. But it brought us together closer as a team, and we really found the yes.
Wearing those masks made me a better listener, and the reason why is because I guess I'm lazy when I read lips, and so when I was hearing people talk, I mean, I had to physically listen to their voice come through that mask. Did you have to do the same thing? Because I mean, you were with people that you couldn't see their lips moving.
Exactly, and for me as a leader, I like to refer to people by names. That's one thing that I pride myself on. As you'll read in my book, there were times when people didn't refer to me by names, but by my title. Oh, let the aide do that, let the aide. And it was so condescending. And so I make it a point of duty to learn people's names. And, how I do that, the face, right? And I connect it with something that I will remember that person.
Yep.
And so here we are now, everybody's masked. And now I have to learn eyes. And we have so many new people coming in, and I'd want to refer to people by names and thank them by names. So I had to then, develop different senses. I would look at the eyes, or I'd listen to the voices. And yes, it made me a better listener because I had no choice. And I did that because I found that also listening to my staff and their concerns was very, very important. Wow. Very, very important. Sometimes what people wanted was just for you to stand there or sit there and listen to them vent. Just be that shoulder and that listening ear. Because sometimes I didn't have the answers. Wow. But people appreciated me just being there and listening.
This is every bit the reason why not just the medical world, but every business needs to read this book to find out how you stay united and you build on days of doubt. You still build. And like you said, looking for that yes. I'm just so glad that we had a moment to speak today. And Sandra, I want to talk to you again sometime in the future because you've got one hell of a story here that needs to keep reaching out there.
I'm available anytime you're ready.
Well, you be brilliant today, okay?
Thank you so much, and you do the same.
Thank you. Hello and good morning. How's everybody doing?
Hey, Arrow, how are you?
Fantastic.
I am doing great. I am here with Emily Locker for Running Mates.
Excellent. Looking forward to this.
Yeah, it was great. I mean, she's been doing wonderfully this morning with all of her interviews.
I love it.
I think you're going to have a great time. My next interview is not until 30 after, so take as much time as you want with her.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
Okay, I'm going to put you on hold, and then I'll transfer you in, okay?
Thank you. Hello and good morning, Emily.
Hi, Arrow. How are you?
Doing fantastic. Really excited to talk with you because this book is coming out at a really interesting time in history where people are on separate sides, but they're not having these conversations that Gabe and Annabelle are doing.
Yes, that is for sure.
But see, don't you think that this book could inspire that change, though?
Yes, that is definitely my hope. I think that, I think one of my favorite stories from writing this book is one of the, I live in D.C., and at my son's school, one of the moms who had read the book said that there should be required reading for Hill staffers, because she had actually fell in love with her husband. She's when they were both on the Hill, and back in the day, they used to, you would argue all day, then you would get beer, and then you would play on the same softball team, and the next day, you had, deals being made or relationships starting, and now that does not happen. There's none of that. You don't talk to anyone from the other side. You don't grab a beer. And so just think of all the lost romances that have occurred because of this divide. That is
so true. And you make Annabelle and Gabe feel so real. Is that because of your psychology and your psychotherapy background? Because, I mean, they're so real, but it's almost like, how did she make them so like us?
I think it is a real advantage being a writer and a therapist because, usually we don't get to hear people's internal worlds. I could be in the worst mood, but, if I'm speaking to somebody, if I'm speaking to a barista at Starbucks or if I'm speaking to a parent at school, I'm going to have my game face on and be pleasant. But when you're in session with someone, you hear everything they're thinking from the most absurd to the saddest, and that really allows for such great character development when you're writing.
I like the way that you talk about the small town, because, I mean, over the past, let's say, 8 to 10 years, this small town feeling has really taken sides as well. And I can see it around the Charlotte area in the smaller towns, how everybody is on their side of the fence and they're not really getting along with each other all the time.
Right, it's a fictional town in the South, but it was kind of loosely based on the research triangle idea, where you have this small town, North Carolina, in the book, which is, again, fictional, but half the town, because of a research university and a hospital, there's half the town, the east side is liberal, and then it's the south, and so the north side is conservative. And these sides try to have nothing to do with each other, but what are the spaces that bring us together? And in Anna Gabe's case, that was a running team.
A lot of young adults, they have their opinions, but they don't know how to use their opinions. I think this is going to be a great teaching tool in the way of them saying, hey, I'm either Gabe or I'm Annabelle, and I want to be able to talk to somebody about this without being judged.
Absolutely. I see so much in my practice. People are, especially college students, they're cutting relationships off with people because of how they think, what they post on social media. And plenty of grown-ups are doing this, even like 50 and 60-year-olds are doing this, and this has really become kind of commonplace now to not be able to really even be friends with someone who thinks differently, and I think there's a lot lost there.
Yeah, and to me, that's where ghosting came from, and I sat there and I kept wondering, is Gabe going to ghost her? Because, I mean, or would Annabelle ghost Gabe?
Yeah. Probably Annabelle would be more likely. I think she's more hot-headed. Gabe's a little more.
So what did you feel while you were putting those words together? Because, I mean, it has to move through you first before it arrives in our eyes.
Yeah, I think there were some parts that were challenging, and like that, when your characters think differently than you do, that can be really challenging. But, that's where I think the power of like romance comes in, and the power of these shared spaces that have nothing to do with politics, where you can see and understand where someone's coming from. And so, I think the mix of these like romance tropes, where you have this idea that, somebody, the power of falling in love, but what happens when you think so differently? And I just think that's such an interesting dynamic to work through. And I think it definitely helps me kind of even speak to my friends who think differently in a different way and try to really understand them in a more open-minded way.
One of the title of the book really caught my attention, because in so many different ways there could be different definitions, because running mates could be there on two different sides of the political fence. Running mate means they're out there running together.
Right. And in this case, both work.
Yeah. Well, I just thought that was very clever as to how you're doing that, because once you dive into those pages and you see what it's about, then you go, I know where we're going with this.
Yeah. Yes, definitely. And I think the first title was something like the Lost Art of Manners, and then they were like, that's not catchy enough. And then, I think it was a brainstorm. My agent and me and the publisher all like kind of finding the right title, which even though writing is a solo sport, and there's so many people who help. It's really a team effort at the end.
A solo sport, but yet when you get two runners together, they've got a lot of things to talk about.
That is for sure.
I think it's because they're up there in their head so much while they're out there running around that they've just got to get it out with somebody.
Yes. And then after running, you're in a good mood. It's good for mental health, so you can argue less while you're talking about hard choices. Maybe that's the key. We should have everyone like run 10 miles and they can argue. They'd probably get along better.
So many listeners and readers are going to really see themselves inside these storylines in the way that, they inside their mind, they are an activist. They want to see some activism. But where can they go to even learn more about this? Because there's so many people that want the younger generation to use their voice.
Yeah. I think you want to think I think it's so great that the younger generation does want to use their voice, and I think they have more platforms than ever. I think social media, which has benefits and, bad and good, like everything else, you can, through social media, you could live in a place that maybe not a major TV or radio town and still be really heard. And like, whether it's on YouTube or on your Instagram channel, I think more than ever, there are these ways we can get our voices heard. But I think the trapping is that how do we make sure we can hold our own views and talk about our own views, but not totally shut out other points of views, even if they are very different and maybe even feel threatening.
Yeah, because it's even a fearful journey if you're even going to be on social media, because it's all there, but do you want to be a part of that crowd?
Right, and there's a lot of harm from social media too, so it's so complicated.
Ooh. So now, to get into this storyline, how did you measure the balance in it? Because that's what I love about this, is that there is that your editor that did that, or how did you keep it so well balanced?
Well, I think I'm a huge lifelong romance lover and reader. And romance novels actually have pretty clear guidelines that I don't think everyone knows about. Like, to really be a romance, you have to have the two love interests on the page. Every 10 pages, they have to be together.
Oh, wow.
Also, there's usually a third act breakup. And usually there's always a happily ever after. And I think, writing this book made me really understand why that's so important, because Josh says you don't want to get, at the end of the day, you want people to be in the romance and the comedy, and the way to do that is to keep the tension between the characters. It's exciting. Usually tension is threatening, right? Usually if people are not getting along, it makes you uncomfortable, but in this case, it's adding to the romance appeal. So, I think that's the real balance, which is it's almost exciting when they disagree because there's some other, sexual tension there instead of it just being awkward.
See, I like tension and I like conflict. And the thing is I'll dive into it as a writer, and now I've got to figure out how am I going to find some peace here as well.
Right.
Oh, but it gets inside your own personal. I guess you being a psychotherapist. I mean, hey, I guess you just take care of yourself.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think I'm also a runner. I'm not Anne and Gabe are like fabulous runners. I just run 3 miles very slowly, and I read a lot of romance, and I eat a lot of chocolate chip cookies. But I also think that, moving back to D.C., I've been around a lot of people who think differently than me again. And I realized, I think something that's been powerful is that I can also learn from the way other people do things. And that makes me a better therapist, and it makes me a better mom, and it makes me a better writer. So I think that's been really powerful, too.
What is your writing discipline?
All right, so I have 2 small boys and I work full time. So I'm going to tell you what I do. I would never recommend this for mental health because it's bad for mental health. I write between 10 p.m. and 12:30 or 1 a.m. and I do that by eating M&Ms and espresso the whole time. So I do not recommend that as a therapist, but it is effective for a writing mom who has a full-time job. And I think writing, when you're writing the discipline, like people really want it to be romantic, inspiration, here I go, but that is not true. It's like anything else. You have to put your butt in a chair and kind of produce a certain amount of words or pages a day. Yeah. And so, that's kind of the reality. And I think M&Ms are a great way to motivate.
I know a lot of musicians that do exactly what you do, and they say, I want to write at night. That's where my energy is given birth.
Yeah, yes. Or in my case, more the only time I have, but I definitely recommend trying to sleep more than I've slept in the last year. But it's been worth it.
See, I'm a daily writer, so my writing time is 7 in the morning, and I mean I've got to be rocking at that time. As that writer and the author of this storyline, when did you start to realize that Gabe and Annabelle were starting to respect each other? And to me, it's at that perfectly balanced timing when it really starts to click.
Yeah, I think so. At first, you see that they can't really tolerate. Right. The pressure of their friends and families. They feel almost too embarrassed to really be together. And that when that shifts, when they're willing to still be together despite kind of pressures from family or friends, is a shift that they're prioritizing each other and also really feeling more confident in themselves to make decisions they think are true to who they want to be rather than who the people they're around are pushing them to do.
Wow. So do you make this a 10-part binge watch, or are you going to do a rom-com here?
I might go back to there's some side characters who should have other stories, but really? I think my next novel is also going to be a romantic comedy, but in a different setting with a new cast, at least for now.
See, I like that kind of thinking because I mean, when you bring people into the storyline, and it's almost like the reader gets to see them, shake hands, okay, I'll never see him again. So yeah, continuing on with a story like that gives you a series.
Yes, exactly. And there are some side characters who I know people really want stories for. That's been some of the feedback, especially Sam and Dell, who are like the best friends, and Mason. People really want to see them have their own romances, and maybe one day they will, because everyone deserves a happy ever after.
Wow. I would love to see the research on how many grown men will find this book and they will read it.
Oh, okay. So my husband's a lawyer, and his friends only read nonfiction, but because this was my book, they all read it. And it was their first, literally they read biographies, war biographies, the Constitution, whatever they read. They've never read a rom-com, and they were so funny reading this book because they were texting me about it nonstop. See? They thought it was so romantic. Mm-hmm. They thought it was much more like, they're not used to books with this level of sexual tension, even though it's very PG-13. So it was so funny watching them, particularly digest running mates.
We're all still just kids. We never really grow up.
Yes.
So where can people go to find out more about you, Emily? Because I want them to really get into what you're doing.
Yeah. So I have a website, and if you just Google Emily Locker Author, it'll pop up. And there's a way you can email me on that. And also, I'm on Instagram, and you can always DM me, and I will do my best to always answer. I love talking about romance and therapy and empathy and all these topics.
I love it. You got to come back to this show anytime in the future. The door is always going to be open for you.
I would love that. Thank you, Arrow.
Well, be brilliant, and thank you so much for sharing your writing and not hiding it underneath your bed.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much, and thanks for having me.
You bet. Thank you.